Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another one. It's political season right now, and we see the JLP come out, and welcome wherever you are listening from. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. We see the Jamaica Labour Party come out and put out a pamphlet of their achievements, and of course, in the fashion that she is, the historian, the political historian that she is, Right Manga has decided to put out a series about the achievements of the People's National Party, and I am here for it. All right, this will be episode one, ladies and gentlemen. I will also be making a playlist for this series. All right, PNP Achievements episode one. She did two videos already, and those two videos will be in this one reaction. All right, get out your notepad, get your pen. All right, stay locked in. All right, stay focused, pay attention, and listen, ladies and gentlemen, because all lies will be exposed.
All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way.
Dear Jamaicans, this morning we begin our series on the booklet 100 Reasons to Vote for the PNP, which was published in 2015. Now, I promised you that I would do this series so that you can see that the PNP did in fact publish an entire book, 60 pages worth of book, in 2015 of their own accomplishments. So today we'll begin with the Right Honorable Norman Manley. Now, even though Norman Manley was never a prime minister, he was indeed the chief minister and the premier before Jamaica gained independence. So the Right Excellent Norman Washington Manley, who was the PNP's president from 1938 to 1969, was the chief minister of Jamaica from 1955 to 1959, and Jamaica's premier from 1959 to 1962. At the birth of the People's National Party in 1938, the founding president, Norman Manley, declared the People's National Party is called the People's Party because it will unswervingly aim at all those measures which serve the masses of the country. It is called national because it is pledged to the development of the national spirit. Under the leadership of all four party presidents, the PNP has carried out policies and programs consistent with commitment. Norman Manley and the PNP were architects of the 1944 Constitution that brought universal adult suffrage to Jamaica, giving every adult the right to vote. In 1949, the PNP launched the Plan for Progress, which became the blueprint for Jamaica's economic development, making us the leading development nation in the world. Norman Manley and the PNP in 1953 introduced the ministerial system of governance in Jamaica, which led the way for constitutional advancement. It was the advocacy of the PNP in 1959 which led to Jamaica achieving internal self-governance, something that the JLP fought long and hard against. Norman Manley and the PNP demanded and negotiated Jamaica's independence, only for the JLP to benefit from that actual independence happening. For 7.5 years, 1955 to 1962, Norman Manley and the PNP shepherded an unprecedented expansion of the Jamaican economy. The annual average growth during the administration was some 6%. And in the fiscal year 1956 to 1957, the economy grew by a whopping 14.1%, establishing a record that has not been matched or surpassed by any administration since. In 1955, the establishment of the Central Planning Unit, now the Planning Institute of Jamaica, marked the beginning of planning economic and social development in Jamaica. In 1957, the PNP administration introduced Jamaica's first 10-year development plan. The Beach Control Law of 1955 gave all Jamaicans the right to access our beaches. Before this, Jamaicans were barred from many of the island's beaches, something that we have been returning to since 2017. The Norman Manley administration introduced the Watershed Protection Act to preserve the environment and protect our water resources. The Scientific Research Council was established also. In 1956, industrial incentives law facilitated growth of the manufacturing sector. A small business loan bureau was established to promote small business development. The Bank of Jamaica Act was passed in 1960 and the bank began operation in 1961. So it was under a PNP government that the Bank of Jamaica was established. The Export Industries Encouragement Law of 1956 established additional incentives for exports. The Facilities of Titles Law, introduced in 1955, made it possible for thousands of small farmers to obtain land titles without going through traditional, expensive, and laborious application process. Before this, it was virtually impossible for small farmers and ordinary Jamaican folk to purchase land. The land bond laws in 1955 allowed the start of land reform in Jamaica by granting the government access to idle lands in exchange for bonds. During the Norman Manley administration, tourism experienced its first golden age with the establishment of the much talked about Jamaican Tourist Board. Yes, that was also established by Norman Manley. The expansion of major airports and the opening and development of Negril as a tourist resort town. A new agreement negotiated with the bauxite companies increased royalties they paid Jamaica by 400%, thereby boosting the country's revenue. The Norman Manley administration introduced the common entrance exam in 1957 because of their deep concern that a large number of children of poor parents who were unable to pay fees should be afforded the opportunity of a good grammar school education with the fees being paid by the government. So yes, it was the Norman Manley administration which made secondary education free and accessible to the majority of Jamaicans. Initially, 2,000 students annually were given fully paid access to high school, increasing enrollment from 11,600 in 1957 to 19,236 in 1962. The 1957 educational reforms also included the establishment of the College of Arts, Science and Technology, which is now known as UTech. Initially CAST, as it was called, was where all the technical schools sent the children to in a feeder program established by Norman Manley. Kingston Technical School and the practical training centers including Dintil, Homewood were converted to technical high schools to feed into CAST. And of course, CAST is now known as the University of Technology. The Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation was established in 1959. It's so ironic that journalists treat us this way because JBC has since been incorporated into the Radio Jamaica Communications Group, and the JBC TV is basically the predecessor of TVJ, established by the PNP as well. Establishment of the Government Broadcasting Services, which created the Government Information Service, now known as JIS, Jamaica Information Service, as well as Schools Broadcasting Service, which broadcast the school curriculum via radio. Work on the National Stadium started in 1955 and was completed for independence celebrations in August 1962. Now, when the National Stadium was being constructed, there was a lot of pushback by the JLP, which of course was formed in 1944. There were actually demonstrations, statewide demonstrations led by the JLP in protest of the building of not only the National Stadium, but the entire Independence Park. As a matter of fact, there were several worker demonstrations. It was hard for the government to find people to work on the stadium. And in fact, the prime minister, the minister at that time, Norman Manley, had to basically encourage the Rastafarian community from up in Warwicker Hills to come down and assist with the mason work, the stone cutting during the process of building the stadium. In 1959, when the PNP celebrated its 21st anniversary, Norman Manley could justifiably claim, "It is our party that built the national movement, that took Jamaica out of the colonial matrix, that redeemed the soul of our people from the dead hand of bondage, that liberated the energy and the will and the spirit that has swept us forward and onward and upward for the last 20 years. Under the Norman Manley-led PNP administration, Jamaica and India, the first two countries in the British Empire, were basically able to cut trade with racist apartheid South Africa. In summary, the Norman Manley administration created institutions on which modern Jamaica has been built, and in the process made Jamaica a leader in the developing world. In the next part, we look at the accomplishments of Micheal Manley. I doubt that will only take one video though. Take care until next time. Dear Jamaicans, today we look at part 2 of our PNP achievements. Dear Jamaicans, today we look at part 2 of our PNP achievements series, where we are actually taking excerpts from the PNP publication, Hundreds of Reasons to Vote PNP, published by our party in 2015. Now today we are looking at the achievements of the Right Honorable, the Most Honorable, Micheal Norman Manley, otherwise known as Joshua, who was our party president from 1969 to 1992, and our Prime Minister, Jamaica's Prime Minister, from 1972 to 1980, and again from 1989 to 1992 when he retired from representational politics. Comrade Micheal Manley will always be remembered as Jamaica's most passionate and unrelenting campaigner for social justice. The Jamaican workers will always remember Micheal Manley and the PNP for the body of legislation and programs which expanded workers' rights and raised the workers' standards of living, including the minimum wage and the compulsory recognition of trade unions, the abolition of the master and servant law to establish and protect the rights of workers, the Status of Children Act, replacing the archaic Bastardy Act, giving legal rights to children born to unmarried parents, the maternity leave law, which granted paid leave to new mothers, the Employment Equal Pay for Men and Women Act became effective in 1975, free education through the abolition of tuition fees in secondary schools, the establishment of the Jamaica Movement for Adult Literacy, otherwise known as JAMAL, which is now the Jamaica Foundation for Lifelong Learning. The G.C. Foster College of Physical Education was built to train sports professionals. The creation of the Cultural Training Center, which is now the Edna Manley College for Visual and Performing Arts. Elim Agricultural School started. It has now been renamed the Sydney Pagan Agricultural School. Access to education was significantly expanded by increasing the number of institutions as follows. 93 infant schools were built, 67 primary schools were built, 44 new secondary schools were built, and 4 community college, namely Montego Bay Community College, Brownstown Community College, Knox Community College, and Excelsior Community College. The establishment of the National Housing Trust. The establishment of the Sites and Services Housing Project to accelerate the construction of low-income housing. significantly expanded the land reform program to provide increased access to land and boost agricultural production. Remember, the land reform program was started by Norman Washington Manley. The rural electrification program was created with the wiring of some 30,000 homes, benefiting 270,000 Jamaicans. The special employment program was created to provide employment 11,500 jobs for large pools of unskilled workers. An additional 7,000 jobs were created under the Youth Employment Product Program. The Employee Share Ownership Program, ESOP, gave workers a greater stake through ownership in businesses. Opportunities were created for small and medium sized businesses to expand through programs such as the Micro Investment Development Agency MIDA. The Rent Restriction Act was passed, reducing the power of landlords to arbitrarily raise rent for tenants. The establishment of the National Commercial Bank, formerly Barclays Bank, yes, the PNP established the NCB. Airports Authority of Jamaica was created, the establishment of the Port Authority of Jamaica, the establishment of the Bauxite and Alumina Trading Company of Jamaica to ensure that Jamaica got maximum gains from the bauxite mining and sale, the establishment of Alcoa Minerals Jamaica, now Jamalco, the establishment of the Jamaica Bauxite Institute. The bauxite levy was introduced to finance national development. Of course, the JLP has removed it. The creation of the Office of Disaster Preparedness. Now the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. The creation of the Integrity Commission in 1973. Yes, the Integrity Commission that the labor rights have been boasting about setting up and funding was actually created in 1973 by Micheal Manley. The establishment of the Kingston Export Free Zone, the establishment of the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica, the establishment of the Jamaica Merchant Marine Limited. The Bureau of Women's Affairs was created to address issues critical to women. Women's Center Foundation for Jamaica established to help teen mothers. The Jamaica Maritime Institute was also established. Over 100 community enterprise organizations were created to mobilize entrepreneurship at the community level. The National Youth Service was formed to create a cadre of patriotic young Jamaicans for national development. More than 1,000 community health aides were recruited and deployed across Jamaica. Many community health centers were built to facilitate primary healthcare delivery. Maternity centers were built to provide prenatal care to expectant and lactating mothers at Spanish Town, St. Catherine, Lucy Hanover, Black River, St. Elizabeth, Port Morant, St. Thomas, Fair Prospect, Portland, Dias Hanover, Chester Castle Hanover, and the expansion of the Victoria Jubilee Hospital. Intensive care units were built at the Kingston Public Hospital, the Bustamante Children's Hospital, and the University Hospital. New nurses training centers were built at the Cornwall Regional Hospital. Electoral Advisory Committee was created in 1979, and the Ombudsman Act was passed in Parliament. The creation of the National Gallery of Jamaica. Micheal Manley was awarded the United Nations Medal for the fight against apartheid. Now, these are Micheal Manley's achievements as listed in the book of Hundreds of Reasons to Vote for PNP. However, after discussion on my live tonight with several senior comrades, we have compiled even more of Micheal Manley's accomplishments that were never included in this publication. So I'm going to read from what was discussed. The Cuban-Jamaican bilateral programs. The Cuban-Jamaican bilateral scholarship program was created in 1974 between Micheal Manley and Fidel Castro, where Jamaicans left and were trained in various fields in Cuba, such as medicine, dentistry, skills like carpentry, masonry, etc. The National Housing Trust was created by Micheal Manley and the PNP in 19 1976. The Russia Scholarship Program, where Jamaicans went to Russia to get trained or they went to university. The Social Development Commission was created by Michael Manley. Michael Manley was also the leader of the non-aligned movement globally, where countries would band together to fight against injustices in other countries worldwide, like Angola, for instance, and South Africa. Michael Manley, as the leader of the non-aligned movement, championed the One China policy so that China could become a permanent member of the wait name become a permanent member of the United Nations. Michael Manley also created the AMC markets all across the island to facilitate the sale of the produce from farmers. So these are the accomplishments of Michael Manley as Prime Minister of Jamaica between 1972 and 1980, and again 1992, 1989 to 1992. I thank you. Have a great night. The next time we do this series, we look at the achievements of PJ Patterson as Prime Minister from 1992 to 2006. Have a great evening.
Wow. I appreciate this. I don't know about y'all, but I appreciate this. Did not know a lot of stuff. And hey, I wasn't following the politics or whatever, but this is a teachable moment, ladies and gentlemen. You know what to do. Hit that like button. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I mean, some of you lived through this era. Y'all know what it is. Y'all know what's going on. I want you to storm up the comment section. For the young people out there, man, share this with the young people, man. You should let them understand the DNA of the People's National Party and where they're coming from. You know what I'm saying? And how they operate. We need educated electorate. We need an educated Jamaica. All right. All right, so shout out to Right Mango, and yeah, this is episode 1 of this series. So she's going on the next one is PJ Patterson, and then Portia Simpson Miller came after him. So yeah, it's gonna be a 2-part series, but yeah, it's a lot. Get, like I said, your pen and pad. Go fact check everything, and yeah. All right, let me know what y'all think in the comment section, man. Salute.